Wall sliding and wall jumping have been the most requested features on this channel so far. So without further ado, let's roll up our sleeves and finally make your wish come true. I prepared a sample scene with a controllable player and a few walls, each with a sprite renderer and a box collider 2D. Let's create an empty game object called wallcheck as a child of our player and position it on the right edge of our player's collider. If your player faces left by default, move the wallcheck to the left side of your player. Let's look at the script attached to our player and implement wall sliding first. If you have seen my player movement tutorial, this script should already look familiar. First of all, we need two private variables. A boolean that indicates whether we are wall sliding, and a float for the wall sliding speed. We also need two serialized fields to reference the wall check and the wall layer. We are going to add the wall layer later in Unity. Let's create a private method called isWall that returns a boolean. To check if we are touching a wall, we use a method called physics2d.overlapCircle. This method creates an invisible circle with a radius of 0.2 at the position of the wall check and returns true if it collides with the wall layer. Let's create another private method called wallSlide. So, if isWalled returns true and isGrounded returns false and the horizontal input is not 0, we set isWallSliding to true. Otherwise, we set isWallSliding to false. And once isWallSliding is true, we clamp the rigid body's vertical velocity between the negative value of the wall sliding speed and float.max value. Last but not least, we call the wallSlide method inside the update method. Let's save our script and go back to Unity. Back in Unity, we need to add a new layer called wall and assign it to every wall in our scene. Next, we need to reference the wall check and the wall layer in our script. By the way, you can also select multiple layers here, but that's entirely up to you. If we play the game now, we should be able to wall slide. Nice! Now, it's finally time to add wall jumping to our script. First of all, we need a few more private variables. A boolean that indicates whether we are wall jumping, a float for the wall jumping direction, a float for the wall jumping time, a float for the wall jumping counter, a float for the wall jumping duration, and a vector 2 for the wall jumping power. Let's create a private method called wallJump. So, whenever isWallSliding is true, we set isWallJumping to false. Next, we set the wall jumping direction to the negative value of transform.localscale.x. In our case, transform.localscale.x indicates the direction our player is facing, and we want to jump in the opposite direction. If you use a different method to flip your player and need help adjusting the code accordingly, feel free to leave a comment or join our Discord server. Now, we set the wall jumping counter to the wall jumping time. And if isWallSliding is false, we make the wall jumping counter count down by subtracting time.delta time from it. This allows us to turn away from the wall and still be able to wall jump for a brief moment. Afterwards, if we press the jump button and the wall jumping counter is greater than 0, we set isWallJumping to true. Next, we set the rigid body's horizontal velocity to the wall jumping direction multiplied by the x component of the wall jumping power and the rigid body's vertical velocity to the y component of the wall jumping power. To prevent our player from jumping multiple times by spamming the jump button, we now need to set the wall jumping counter to 0. We always want to face the direction of movement, so we flip our player if transform.localscale.x is not equal to the wall jumping direction. To flip our player, we set is facing right to its opposite value and multiply the x component of transform.localscale by -1. Again, if you flip your player differently, you'll probably need to change the code a little bit. Let's create another private method called stop wall jumping and set is wall jumping to false. Back in the wall jump method, once is wall jumping is true, we invoke the previously created method with a short delay. And if is wall sliding is true, we cancel the invocation of stop wall jumping. The wall jump method is done, but we still need to call it inside the update method. Last but not least, we don't want our player to be able to move and flip while wall jumping, so we only execute the responsible code for moving and flipping if is wall jumping is false. Let's save our script and go back to Unity. If we play the game now, we should be able to wall jump. Awesome! There are many different types of wall slides and wall jumps, and there are even more ways to implement them in Unity. But if you are happy with my solution, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.